I think Satyakam just asked that question. I would not repeat that, but just a show of hands. All of us are listening in, right? Fantastic. This topic, believe me, is very, very interesting, and so is the set of panelists I have with me today. Fantastic set. So, one, we have Shuvajit, who is doing some fantastic work from Tata Digital, some very interesting cases. You would hear some of this from him, and of course, some of the trends. We have Amit, Dr. Amit, who is contributing to a lot of very interesting case studies in the retail space. He's contributing, and we are doing something together with him very shortly. You would listen to some of the strategies and cases from him. And of course, we have Alapon, who is representing dunnhumby, doing some very interesting cases for global clientele across in retail sector. So this is a fantastic set. Before I go into this particular topic of data science and AI's intervention and contribution, maybe just a few snippets, and if it is possible, because is the screen working? Can I show a few pictures for some of you? Just maybe think through. Is the slides on? So I'll just try and show some snippets of how tech and data science is actually impacting the sector and how interesting cases are happening not only in India but in various parts of the globe, and this is what we're looking for. So look at this smart mirror system in retail sector. One of the greatest time spent inside the retail mall is actually trying clothes on, and how we are actually cutting short of time. You see that. The next picture, the rise of voice shopping. Many of us are doing parallel processing, and this is a great new trend which is there. The omnichannel experience, where we were visiting the retail stores, and of course we are checking in the prices and what is there in other outlets, or the price comparisons, etc. This is very much handy with us. We are looking at in-store experiences, fantastic innovations happening in those space, giving them experience to come back to the store and experience, right? This is an experience of a self-service kiosk. We are almost all of us are used to cutting those lines and of course doing those choices. This is showing inside a McDonald's store. Many of you will be familiar. Inventory checking robot in terms of quickly finding out and checking and finding out whether the particular item is there in the store or not, and what is the level. That gives a very good clarity. Next one, greeting shoppers inside the mall, quickly give you an idea of some of the offers which are there when you're entering the store, and how you're actually you can get the most of it. And of course, inventory status. This is for the retailers themselves inside the store for proper supply chain management and making sure that shoppers get the stuff which they need. Overall, this is, I think, the crux of the matter which we're going to discuss this evening: data-powered cross-sell and upsell opportunities and how we can do it the best way. This is the last one, I guess. This is the facial recognition and checkout assistance. Not many stores would be able to do that, but where it is happening in some of the pilots for easy access and easy checking out. And this is, of course, search location assist in a big store, finding out a product as fast as possible. So just a few glimpses for you. You can cut it. You can switch back to the original mode. I will first come to Alapon. Alapon, from dunnhumby, we were doing some very, very interesting cases and finding out what customer needs are. And it is not so very easy to capture the needs, right? And once you capture those needs, how do you capture? That is my first question. And the follow-up question would be, how do you process those needs to basically provide those solutions to the retailers so that they can make the most of it and provide those value proposition to the retailers?
Thank you for the question. I have been working in the space of retail since 2010 and actually understanding customer behavior through their shopping. And one of the reasons I personally enjoy working in retail is it gives me a unique opportunity to actually play a role in the lives of individuals by understanding their needs. In the right way, hopefully not in a creepy way and a big brother sort of a way by observing their data. But I think that's really at the crux of what we can do for customers and actually identify and help them as individuals, right? And it starts with the shopping journey. So there are a lot of things which are going on when a customer actually walks into a store or goes to an e-commerce site and makes a choice. There is a trigger behind that behavior in terms of what he or she needs. There are personal optimization choices that the customer makes, whether it is related to a brand, a value perception, a budget, etc. And when you start to observe this for our customer and lots of customers over a period of time, certain patterns really emerge. Yeah, and at that point in time, you are able to understand, if I use a term that we use quite frequently in our industry, need states of customers, right? Why they are actually in the store or doing something, right? Is it a requirement to top up their grocery over the week, or is it a special occasion where they are hosting something, or is there a new addition to the family, so they're starting to go on a slightly different customer journey in terms of shopping for babies, etc., right? And once you have this data, obviously it requires processing millions and millions of transactions. You can start to sort of think about how this can be transformed into insights. So for instance, if there is a store of a certain kind which attracts segments of customers, you can start to think about what's the specific range in the store which would be helpful for the customers to come to. Of course, in terms of dynamic pricing, there's a lot that you could do. I guess the most interesting place is in the area of personalization, and where the sky is the limit. And you can get it down to literally the day, the hour, the brand, and the product, right? You already showed some of the examples on the screen before. So you could do quite a lot, and I think another really interesting area that is coming up is now you can actually influence a lot of choices for the customers. For instance, if you start to think about areas of health and areas of sustainability, I think the businesses can play a slightly different role. It's no longer just about profit. It's also about promoting certain responsible behaviors.
You to add to that?
I just wanted to add a couple of points to what Alapon said.
Shuvajit.
I think, great examples. I think in the online space, if you really see, all it boils down to is what is the intent that you can capture about that user for that particular session, right? It's, I think what Alapon was talking about is what we refer to as trip mission, right? So why did the user come in the first place? Obviously, before the user has come, you might have created a vector of their preferences, right? What they like, what they have purchased, what they have searched for, etc. That gives you a sense of what they might be there for, but obviously not every session is a reflection of what they have done in the past, and hence a lot of this is going to be mining a lot of the intent really real time when the user is on the app or on the browse to figure out really what they're looking for, and help them nudge to finally eventually make a conversion. Now obviously there are variety of categories. Some take one session to buy, if it's grocery or health, right, where you don't have too much of mind share, you just go pick things up and go. But if it's a hotel reservation you're trying to make, or if it's a electronics purchase you're trying to make, it may take multiple sessions. Maybe you are going to do some sort of com shopping, checking out prices, best offers across this. I think we all do that, right? And ultimately then boil down to one. So depending on different categories, I think the journeys are different, and hence the capturing of the intent and finally converting is fairly different.
Absolutely. Maybe just a quick follow-up question on that one. See, if you look at the demographics and the purchase behavior of the young generation right now, the way they are hooked onto their smartphones and how their behavior is totally different than what it was perhaps. And if you look at different segments and stratas of the clientele, people who are visiting the stores, or youngsters who are making the decisions there and influencing their parents also at times. So how do you classify all that? And of course, for different products, the different set of customers, the target groups are different. So do you have specific plans, and how do you make sure that you're catering to that segment in a very focused fashion? Maybe any of you can take that.
Yeah, I can probably follow up on that. I think it's a very important question. There are different approaches you can follow, and you have to be careful, and I'll explain to you in a minute. Of course, it's just no longer sufficient to just use the data that you are mining from the transactions in a store or e-commerce, right? That needs to be augmented by a lot of other things in terms of what you're seeing on social media, for instance, right? Those are areas which heavily influence some of the decision making of today, or for that matter, events which are going on around the world. So you augment the data with some of those signals, but at the same time, I think it's really important to understand that creating identity groups might not be that easy and might not be that right, because a lot of us are from the same part of the country, right? And we were joking about it earlier, but yet we are all very different individuals. So, it's really important to actually capture the individuality. So it's a mix of techniques, really. But at the end of the day, I think the exact purchase behavior is still today the strongest signal that I would relate to.
Excellent. Coming back to, of course, we are capturing data, we are capturing information about individuals and corporations maybe, and then taking those steps. But one thing, I think in many of the sessions earlier also it has been discussed about personalization and the privacy concern. This is absolutely a very, very important area to discuss. And there are limits, there are lines to be drawn, and there are different countries that have different strategies. So, Shubhajit, would you like to take that? How do you make sure that we are not crossing the limits, and how do you play a fine balance between where it ends personalization vis-a-vis the privacy concerns?
Yeah, I think it's a very pertinent question in today's world. I think a lot of us use various apps, knowingly, unknowingly give consent to use our data, right? But I think it all comes back to the point around how we are making sure that we are honoring the data privacy here, right? So without any user consent, personalization should not ideally happen. Obviously, personalization has various angles to it. One is at a user level. One could be at a segment or a cohort level. At a segment or a cohort level, it's still okay, because you are not using any single individual's data or preferences, but a collective knowledge of a group, which is still possibly good to have. But as an individual, it's important to call out that this is the data that we are collecting, and as a result, this is how it will be used. In many cases, it's the user who gives the consent to have a better experience, and in those cases, I think it's perfectly fine. We do have a lot of data privacy governance around it. We still have the DPDP in India, which is getting rolled out. Similar ones in Europe as form of GDPR and etc. I think lays down very significant pointers around usage of data, especially personally identifiable or data on health records or data on financial transactions, which are regulated, right? Obviously, a lot of the companies would still use them if they are, but there has to be a regulated usage of those data. Plus, also the one other thing that I would call out is knowingly or unknowingly, sometimes our machine learning models can have inherent biases, right? Which we need to be careful about, and through model explainability and otherwise, these biases should be removed, so that a certain group of individuals are not favored or unfavored, right? So that those are a few points that I would like to call out.
Amit, you want to add?
Yeah. So, is it audible now?
Yeah.
So while we are talking about personalization and consent given to the apps, to overcome the ethical, unethical challenges, you might have evaluated how the persona is being created. Now, somebody in the earlier session spoke about generative AI. and here it's not about the consent. It's about how your behavior is creating your persona on multiple platforms. And based on that persona, the further personalization happens, whether it is about the product, whether it is about you, or whether it is about the entire supply chain mechanism which is running across countries, across stores, or across online platforms. So, of course, data protection, privacy laws are there. Every tech company, every retail company is taking care legally to be abide to it. But as an end user, apart from what are the transactions you are doing, these days how you are interacting with the technology is creating a kind of persona for you in the digital ecosystem of the world. And based on that persona, further sentiment analysis, incident analysis, transaction analysis, and whatever type of analysis can happen in an organization happens on a single person, single persona. And based on that, further strategies from different retail companies have been evaluated so that the exposure is huge in terms of what is to be delivered, what is to be recommended, and what is to be analyzed. So from the perspective of end user, what is to be predicted with predictive analytics, what is to be prescribed with the help of prescriptive analytics, and what is to be described with the help of descriptive analytics. All of these is driven by data and the bots which are running in the entire digital ecosystem in the personalization space at the moment.
Excellent. Amit, you work with a lot of retailers and you are looking at specific problem statements and trying to provide solutions. I would come to you to understand, because many times there are a lot of innovations in terms of ROI, right? In terms of the kind of products and solutions that there, of course, it requires time, investment, and there are burnt fingers at times. How do you make sure that, how do you position it so that they're convinced and they go forward, and of course after POCs they go in as an actual customers and have a good experience, and maybe after you can also take that, pose that. Amit, primarily the question is to you.
Sure. So as we are talking about the data science or artificial intelligence or any of these emerging tech space, I would like to step back before answering what Nirupam has asked, that we need to understand it is not only about technology here. So artificial intelligence, whether it's generative or any different custom models, has to work with certainly technologists, but also have to work with domain experts and statisticians, because technologists would not be able to understand the output which is being received by the machines which we are training based on different aspects. Now from that perspective, coming to the question, every business, every retail industry, every retail company who wants to improve business goes through different challenges in different departments. To start with, supply chain management or financial transactions. Both the departments are working on the same data with a different perspective and will have different findings or different challenges. Like one of the case study I would like to explain here is a finance department or a vigilance department identifying the frauds or spams happening on the platform. Now, this comes as a problem statement, and the analysis further defines what impact it has on the entire ecosystem. Similarly, from the supply chain department, it is from the product perspective, what and how the product is manufactured to it is shipped to the end mile. What is the seamless experience and what are the challenges in the entire process which are transparently taken care of, either it's a manufacturing defect or a shipping problem or a customer problem. Everything is defined based on what problem statement needs to be addressed. One of the largest retail giant has around 18% of losses only because of gaps in the integration of various departments in the organization. So, as we say that end mile extension is required, every department here, when we make them technology agnostic or a domain agnostic scenario, it defines various aspects and integrates the data, which further is converted into information, intelligence, and experience. And that basically is the core expectation from the retail tech industry at the moment.
If you look at some of the larger set of customers, and this is both for Shubhajit and Alapon, what is your view? I mean, we just heard what has been discussed. So, in terms of some of the biggies, what are some of the typical questions that come to you in terms of when you are actually convincing them to go for the solutions? What really are the questions that you face?
First and foremost, impact.
Yeah.
I think doing anything, all of this, obviously, I think as a lot of large corporations are starting to experiment with Gen AI or have got initial results from their POCs. I think maybe a year and a half back, I think there was a lot more promise. As I speak to a lot of this, obviously there are cost considerations. In some cases, Gen AI could be an overkill because a predictive AI or a much simpler solution could possibly bring in much better results at a short period of time. But at the end of the day, if you go to a CFO of a company where you are pitching, I think with be it data, be it AI or any technology for that matter, the first question will be, what is my ROI? What is the impact that this is going to generate? By when? So in other words, how much revenue, how much contribution margin with this? So one of the things that we always start working is to bring the business to an experimentation mode where you say that, okay, today, for example, you're doing something, through either heuristics or otherwise. How could you possibly add a model to that? How could you then possibly enrich that with more data? How could you then experiment with a more complex technology? And in that graduation, you start to looking at what is the incrementality that you're getting at each of these stages. And that creates a business case really. And there will be failures. It's not like everything will work out. Certain models don't work out. Maybe, be it a lack of enough data to be there in the first place or the right business problem to solve. Sometimes it's obviously a combination, and I've seen this in my previous organization where, for example, a complex engine like inventory management or demand forecasting is not just machines but human in the loop, right? I mean, a lot of the knowledge that inventory analysts or assortment guys would have over a period of time needs to be integrated with a model. It just cannot be a model come and do magic, right? I mean, that whole tribal knowledge has to come into the model. There has to be a closed feedback so that this model keeps running and fine-tuning over a period of time with additional human inputs, and that's how we get to that so-called end state, right?
I'll just quickly add to that, right? In addition to the impact, I think one of the things is how robust the solution is over a period of time. You might come up with a really fancy deep learning model and it works, in one instance, and it starts to give very counterintuitive results the next iteration. That will be absolutely a disaster because, not only you're taking a wrong decisions, but you have probably wasted a lot of money in creating that. So before we put anything in a production scale, it needs to be properly tested. You need to see how robust it is, and that is something which is going to ensure the long-term viability of that impact.
Absolutely. Just about a few minutes left. 1 minute take on next 2 to 3 years. What are some of the biggest impacts that you see from data science AI space in this area? And how it is going to be a value proposition. Quick take on futuristic terms for the next 2-3 years from each one of you. 1 minute.
We have to talk about generative AI and agentic AI in terms of what the massive revolution that they're driving. I see these impacting heavily in the space of responsible consumption, some of that I talked about, right? Health and sustainability. It starts in various stages in different economies because the maturation curve is different. But this is where I think everybody will move forward.
Absolutely. Amit?
See, adoption of these technologies and alignment of it with the value it is bringing to the process is very important, and that has to be taught thought well before adhering to any technology?
I think we'll get to a more stable state. Obviously a lot more experimentation will lead to a lot of learnings, and certain winners will come out. Clearly, I think, which we also observe, Gen AI, or I think conversational AI, clearly one area in digital shopping right now, much more pervasive across all touch points. I think the examples that you showed are clearly there. Not all of them will probably, scale up entirely, but I think we'll get to a more steady state.
Perfect. Shayan, do you have a time for any questions from the audience? Or Okay. Thank you so much. It's really enriching experience for me. I learned a lot. And of course, to my panelists, thank you, Bhuvneshwar.
Thank you so much.